nuclear reactions, the thing that I really want you to understand is that elements or isotopes are being changed from one form to another. So it's really important that you are familiarized with the atomic structure and isotope notation. For review, illustrate what that is here. So remember that A up here at the top, this is the number of protons plus the number of neutrons. X is just the identity of your element, and Z is just simply the number of protons that you're working with. And I guess up here in this corner, before I get into the actual concept mapping, I'll just kind of differentiate the difference between a nuclear reaction and then a chemical reaction. So in a nuclear reaction, again, we have isotopes or elements are changing, and that's really the big central theme. I could say other stuff like, obviously nuclear reactions release a lot of energy, right? Nuclear reactions don't deal with catalysts or pressure gradients or anything like that. Whereas opposed to with chemical reactions, we're really about just making molecules or we're making compounds and things like that. We're really only worried about, see if I can fit this. We're really only worried about the exchange of a valence electron in this stuff. And obviously with chemical reactions, yes, catalysts, other things like that. First thing that I want you guys to really understand is a couple of terms that kind of led to the discoveries in nuclear chemistry, and that is the concept of binding energy and then the mass defect. What the mass defect is basically whenever we looked at the mass of the nucleus, okay, and whenever we looked at the mass of the nucleus versus that of the sum total mass of the individual protons and neutrons, we found that the mass of the nucleus is actually less than the mass of the sum total of protons and neutrons that make up the nucleus. It wasn't until Einstein came along and came up with the equation that energy is basically the same thing as mass and that those two can be interconverted that we actually had a framework that explained the mass defect whenever we split apart the nucleus. And that's really what binding energy is. Binding energy, you could think of it as this is the energy required to overcome the strong nuclear force, the energy required to break apart this nucleus. And so that is going to be dependent upon the change in your mass, obviously converted by the speed of light. That's just a conversion factor. And in the next video, we'll work on some specific problems about this. This is more so just about understanding the concepts. There's two types of nuclear reactions that I think it's important that you understand. Nuclear fusion and nuclear fission. Exactly is nuclear fusion? Well, that term is so colloquially used, you're probably familiarized with it, but basically what we're doing is we're just taking two nuclei and we're combining them together. And in this process of combining two nuclei together to make, let's say, a third nucleus, let's say this is hydrogen plus a helium, hydrogen plus hydrogen yielding a helium, sorry. And let's say that we're doing this inside the sun. This reaction obviously is going to release a lot of energy in the process of that. Your sun, our sun, I think, or any sun of a solar mass, it releases, I think, 5 times 10 to the 26 joules or 4 times 10 to the 26 joules per second. I don't know. A lot of energy is released through nuclear fusion reactions. Nuclear fission, though, there's a lot of different things that we could say about this. As the word fission implies, the double S, always look at the SS, and that means to separate out. We're talking about taking a nucleus, and we're going to break it down into other component parts. I'm running out of room here to some extent, but there's two main categories that we have of nuclear fission. I'm going to go ahead and classify, because of this right here, because we can convert energy into matter, I'm going to go ahead and classify radioactive decay as a type of nuclear fission. Traditional, or maybe classical nuclear fission is basically where we have some type of a very heavy nucleus that we were working with here. And this heavy nucleus, let's say that it gets hit by some type of a neutron. I hope you can see that. Anyways, this heavy nucleus, when it gets hit by a neutron, is going to break apart into smaller, component parts, right? That's the general central theme that's going on here. Let's say it's into a smaller nucleus and then to another smaller nucleus. And then also, let's say maybe it does another neutron. That's really important, that it does another neutron that you're dealing with here, because if you have another neutron emitted, guess what? That other neutron can go back and hit another heavy nucleus, and so you can get this chain reaction that in all of this process here, and it's worth illustrating that this releases a lot of energy, right? Whenever you're breaking something apart into smaller molecules, you are releasing a lot of energy. And that's what, powers a lot of our, nuclear submarines or nuclear energy is really predicated on this concept. 3 types of radioactive decay that we're going to talk about. There is alpha decay, there is beta decay, and then lastly there is gamma decay. So in alpha decay, basically what we're saying is we're going to be the nucleus, whatever that nucleus is going to be emitting something called an alpha particle. And an alpha particle is just the same thing as saying a helium nuclei. Basically the exact same as a helium nuclei. 2 protons, 2 neutrons to have a 4 total. And because it's charged, because it's so massive and heavy, it doesn't really penetrate very well. It interacts with matter very, very easily. But it's very important, especially when understanding Ernest Rutherford's experiments. What's happening is the nucleus is emitting a particle called a beta particle. Now, beta particles are very, very different from that of, let's say, alpha particles. A beta particle can either be, an electron or the antimatter counterponent of it, which is called the positron. It's really important to know that whenever we have a neutron being converted to a proton, we end up emitting a beta, an electron, basically, a beta particle that's negative. Important, but sometimes there will be something called an anti-neutrino. Some textbooks stress that. I don't think that that's really important for the purposes of this class. So if going from a neutron to a proton gives us a negative beta particle, I think you could imagine what the converse would be. If you're going from a proton to a neutron, you're going to be emitting a positron. And just like before here, we had an anti-neutrino. It's worth mentioning for some people that it emits a neutrino. I don't think neutrinos are important pedagogically for this class. Gamma decay, if you remember way back into the electromagnetic spectrum, gamma is one of those things. There's gamma radiation, which is like the super high energy radiation. So what gamma decay is really just the releasing of high energy photons as a kind of a process of nuclear decay. Nucleus releasing photons, electromagnetic radiation, right? If you remember way back when something energetic goes down into a more stable state, it releases energy. And that's really the concept of what we're working with here. Since photons are massless, we don't really have to worry too much about changes in that, but it's important to understand that gamma decay is usually a step in the process of a nucleus going into a more stable configuration. And very rarely will it ever just happen by itself, right? The releasing of high energy photons is usually not enough to stabilize a highly unstable, super heavy element. Okay, so let's see if you can play fill in the blanks with this little concept map here. We're talking about nuclear chemistry, and I want you to see, can you tell me the difference off the top of your head between a nuclear reaction and a chemical reaction? Well, the difference between a nuclear reaction and a chemical reaction is that in a chemical reaction, we are making molecules or compounds. We're breaking bonds and reforming them. We're exchanging valence electrons or sharing valence electrons, something like that. Whereas in nuclear chemistry, we're talking about the isotope or an element undergoing some type of a process of a change. We've already talked about binding energy in this video, so that's kind of laid out. The binding energy is basically the difference between the mass of the nucleus and the mass of the individual component parts. This is because of the strong nuclear force that we have to overcome, and through the E equals mc squared, energy can be defined as equivalent to matter. We have nuclear fusion, which is just the combination of two nuclei into a third nuclei, and this process releases a lot of energy. This is where the energy in our sun comes from. Nuclear fission, as the word fission implies, means what? What does fission mean? Well, nuclear fission is the process of taking a nucleus and splitting it off and breaking it down into smaller component parts. And then there's two types. There's radioactive decay, and then there's just generally overall nuclear fission, And in nuclear fission, we have a heavy nucleus that gets hit by a neutron. And when it gets hit by a neutron, what happens to it? It's going to break apart into three specific things that are going to happen. What are these two things here? You know that it's going to make a neutron, and that neutron can come back and it react with another heavy nuclei, and that process is going to give us energy. But what else does it break down into? Well, it also breaks down into other smaller nuclei, usually something that's more stable, like a noble gas. Another type of nuclear fission is radioactive decay. There's alpha, beta, and gamma. Can you tell me off the top of your head what gamma decay is? Well, gamma decay is simply a single-step process where a nucleus that's in a very high energy state is going to emit high energy photons. And those energy photons are going to have, well, high energy, right? And so gamma radiation is very high on the electromagnetic spectrum, and that's what gamma decay is. Usually by itself, this is not something that operates in a vacuum. It usually is accompanied by other various types of decay. Can you tell me what alpha decay is? Alpha decay is basically just where a nucleus is going to break down into other component parts and emitted something called an alpha particle. And the alpha particle is just a helium nuclei. It consists of 2 protons and 2 neutrons. And it tends to interact with matter very well. It's a solid object, right? And so not a very dangerous form of radiation for sure, but this is the basis for Ernest Rutherford's gold foil experiment. Beta decay consists of 2 specific types that we can have a beta decay. One of these converts a neutron into a proton, and the other converts a proton into a neutron. Can you, off the top of your head, tell me the differences between the 2 emission processes? Well, if we're going from a neutron to a proton, what we're emitting is an electron, a beta particle, but it's an electron configuration, and an antineutrino. And then obviously just by the process of elimination, if you're going from a proton to a neutron, well, you're emitting a positron and a neutrino. Okay, so let's say that some type of a parent isotope emits a positron and undergoes gamma decay and then emits an alpha particle. And the end product of this whole process is iron 6026. What is the original parent particle? See if you can solve this question. Start off by looking at, okay, what is the processes that we'd have here? We had beta decay with a positron at this point. We had gamma decay, and then at the very end we had an alpha particle being released. At the end of that alpha particle, we also had iron, which was 6026. Hopefully you can see that. This was 6026, and I know that an alpha particle, I'll just go ahead and write it up here, that this is 4 and 2. That means that this, the predecessor to this, must have been 64 and 28. If I look on the periodic table, that is nickel. So I've got that step down. And do you know, if you know what gamma decay is, you know that gamma decay doesn't really have anything to do with this so much as it has to do with changes in the energy state. The predecessor of this was also 64 nickel 8. What is the process of a positron release? Positron release is where we have a proton that's being converted to a neutron. Initial parent was 6429, which means if I look on the periodic table, I can see that that is copper.